Hello everyone. In this session, we will be talking about Python application programming. So before getting into the content and what we are going to discuss right now, let us quickly just let us discuss about what we have discussed in the earlier regular lecture classes. Like initially, we have started with what is the need of writing a program, and then how to write, and then we have learned how to write a program, and for what we are writing a programs on our computers. And next we have learned about variables in Python, then expressions, and also like statements, expression statements in Python. And then in module 2 and same in module 1 we have discussed few more things like conditional statements, how it is executing it, and how to do with functions. So these are the things we have discussed over there. And in this I just want to recall the only one thing called function. See, basically a function is meant, what a function is doing is, what is the task of a function? A function is responsible to do its task whenever it is called. A function will be doing its task when it is called, and as a result a function will be returning the value. It will do something, it will compute it, it will do it, and it will return back the value as a result. That is what a function is supposed to do. And we have things called like a calling function, called a function, right? And what is the need of now calling about function is, like a function which we use in normal programming language, I mean in structure oriented programming language and or in languages, we call it as functions. The same function in object oriented programming language, in terms of OOP, we call it as methods. The concept will be same, right? Okay. And in module 2 we have discussed about iterations, strings and files. So these are the three things which are discussed earlier in module 2: iterations, strings and files. So as of now what we shall be doing is like we shall hold module 3 for few weeks, and let us know we shall start quickly with module 4. Once after this module 4 you will be getting into module 3. Once after covering module 4 you will be getting back into module 3. So this is what we have planned and what we are doing now, right? So module 4, classes and objects. So module 4 talks about three topics: classes and objects, classes and functions, classes and objects, classes and functions, and one more last topic is classes and methods. So initially let us recall what is called object oriented programming and what is all that these things are called as. Like OOP is object oriented programming. You know what is called like OOP, object oriented programming. So if I talk about object oriented programming, we should recall the features of object oriented programming. And if I talk about concepts of object oriented programming, I can tell something like encapsulation, abstraction, polymorphism, inheritance. So these are the four most important things, and we have few more also. Like so in this we will be talking as in our syllabus we will be as per our syllabus it is we will be talking only about polymorphism, but we will be looking into few more examples of inheritance. See, the one thing I just want to make you to know is the syllabus is designed, since it is open elective, the syllabus is designed accordingly, which can be easily understandable or which can be easily followed by students from all branches, not only specific to computer science. But since we are from CSE, let us get into some more few little bit more examples and few more concepts of this object class and objects in Python. So that is what I want to make you to know, right? So this polymorphism, abstraction, inheritance, encapsulation. See, polymorphism, you know what is called polymorphism, right? Poly means many, morphism means forms. A thing which takes a method which takes many poly means many, morphism means forms. A method which takes different forms in different places in a program, that is called polymorphism. Abstraction. So you know what is called abstraction, right? So abstraction, data abstraction, we call it as data abstraction. So abstraction is hiding the inner details and providing the details whatever it is necessary and important for the user to know, and hiding all the other internal details of an system or application. That is called abstraction. Inheritance. The process, instead of creating a new class, or instead of we want existing class to we want a new class to make use of the existing class, we use a concept called inheritance. The process of deriving a new class from the existing class, that is called inheritance. And last one, encapsulation. So to be simple, it wraps code and data into a single unit, and through which we can access with as interface or we can have some kind of things. For example, if you want to know, if you want to drive a car, I need not to be familiar with engine, what sort of engine it is made up of, how it is working. If I know it just driving, I can use the interface as like accelerator, brake, gear system. So this I will be making to drive my car. That is what one small example for encapsulation. So let us talk about class. So as I talk about like a class and objects, so we will be solving some real world problems. That is what we'll be discussing, right? So to be simple, this class and objects will be helping us to address real world issues with virtual world solution. I mean like for example, if I take a company can have many number of things which I can treat each and everything as an object. Employee an object, laptop an object, some other things like server an object. If a company wants to do something, I mean like, and I want an employee to do something, and the employee object wants to communicate with the other object called laptop object, it needs to communicate with the other object called server object. So it is also just I can tell you a small example for this classes and objects. And to be better example, I mean we also use a term called a class as a blueprint of a system, or class as a blueprint of a system. So what does that blueprint mean? For example, if you want to build a building, before that I will be having a blueprint of it. I mean like that building will be my designed system. I mean like we call it as like a which I can call it like a blueprint. So I will be having my blueprint before doing my process. This blueprint is called as a class, and whatever that I'm trying to do, I'm trying to get what I'm doing to get that is called as object. Like that is class and object. So it is what is the meaning of class and object in object oriented programming. And this is what a class is called a blueprint of a system from which objects are created. And here if you look into it, so human is a common one, which is a class common one, and this human this human is a common one. And if I talk about an object is instance of a class, right? See, if you look into this, these are the two objects. One object is called like Tom Cruise, and one object is Maria Sharapova. So these two are the objects of the same class called human. So this I can call as like, this is an instance of a class, this object is instance of a class, this object is instance of a class. So what is called instance, what is object, and what is this, this is how this works. And for all this we will be getting into one by one with examples. So like examples. So object, it called about object. So as I called about object has two things. One we talk about attribute, the second we talk about behavior. This attribute can also be called as, what is called attribute as variables. This behavior what is called as methods. So for example, a human being, if I talk about a human being will be having a name, gender, occupation, age. All these will be talking about attributes. That is what we call as like variables. And second most important thing is methods. If I talk about a method, so method is something as like we call as a function. So method is a kind of action which he or she is supposed to do, or it is a kind of action which a class is particularly doing. That is called object. So a kind of action being done. So if it is an action, for example, if I take Maria Poshi plays piano, that is action of it. That is what we can call it as like a method. So it is just an example. When you look into topics, we should be little bit familiar with all those topics. See, a class definition in Python will be looking like this, as we will call like a class point. And initially first I shall be present you this presentation in PPT, and then I will be getting into Python. I will be showing you examples in Python. Like an ideally I will be showing you few examples. So if I want to define a class, I should be using a keyword called class, and then I should be using a class name. This my class name usually always my class name will be, the class name first letter will be always capitalized, right? And what is this pass? It is a keyword in Python which tells you it is not doing anything. That is null, which is meant something can be added in future statements. As of this now, no statement, just it will asking you to do this and execute. That is what this is doing. So this is class, with the class will be done with this, and at the end it will be having a colon. At the end it will be a class name will be ending with colon at the end. So this is how a class can be defined in Python. And as I talk about instantiation, like a human will be a class, and one instance will be Tom Cruise and one instance will be Maria Sharapova. So this is called instantiation, creating an instance for an object by creating the point class I mean, by creating the point class, we created a new type also called point. This is the example which we are considering here. I'm talking about that example also. So this is how we are talking, I mean, like instance of a class. The object will be called as instance of a class. And here, if I execute this particular class name called point, I will be getting this class main underscore point. So it is the output which I will be getting over here. And since an object is an instance of a class, right? So the variable blank, I will be using one more variable called blank, which is assigned to a new point object. For this object, I will be assigning to this, and through this I can even get some values to be get printed. That let us look into the next slides. Attributes. So in attributes, I call like variables which we are defining in a class. I mean, like which we are defining in a class. What are the attributes that we use, and what are the things that we do with the class? And to add new data element to an instance, it is given blank dot text. It means a blank is a object, right? So blank is an object. So blank dot x means go to the object blank, go to the object blank, and x refers to the value. That value will be 3.0, and that is the meaning or notation of it. So blank 3x blank dot x is equal to blank dot x is equal to 3.0, blank dot y equal to 4.0. So this is what the meaning of this attribute. I will tell you like how to create a value to it. That is what it is stating. Go to the object blank, and x will be the value. In this case, we assign that variable named x. The variable will be x. We will be using the dot notation for this, right? So, and the example, one more example which is considered in your textbook is like a rectangle. If I want to create a class rectangle, what are the attributes I will be looking in it? Like height, width, and I will be looking into one origin points like x, y. What are the things I will be doing with this rectangle? To create a rectangle, I need two parameters, right? Width, height. So if I use width and height, so this two will be attribute, will not be a method, right? If you want to do a method over it, I can do one more thing, like I can calculate the area of rectangle. The area of rectangle can be taken as a method. So these two will be talking as like an attribute. And for this, I will show you a small example program. And one more thing I want to tell you is like objects are mutable. I mean, which are changeable. I mean, whatever the object I'm pointing out to with the value, that can be get changed. And how this works, that also can be, we can see it in a program. And copying. So copying, we have like once we can make some kind of thing, function module from one program can be copied to other. Here we have two things. One is called deep copying, one is called shallow copying. So if I have some embedded objects in my program, if it is deep copy, it will be copying the input thing. Shallow copy, it will be just copying the instance of it, right? So then now I will be showing you some few examples of this Python. First let us get into Python IDLE. So this is Python IDLE. You know what is called Python IDLE. So as we told earlier, it is called Python can be get operated used in two modes. One is interactive mode, one is shell mode. It is called scripting mode. So it is interactive mode. So in interactive mode, so like I just want to print some values like a equal to 2. I'll be getting my value. I will be getting my value like a. I will be getting this 2. So as I use one more term called in Python, each and everything are treated as objects. For example, if I want to know this, like I need to know this type. In bracket, I just want to know the type of a. That's what we are talking about, right? I just want to know the type of a. That is what int. In case if I place like this type of single quotes a, I will be getting it as str. And one more thing, like Python, we use strings can be represented in double quotes, triple quotes, and single quotes. For example, single quote. In single quotes, I will be writing I. It will be printing I. Same, it will be using double quotes. I will be writing hi, double quotes. Sorry. Print double quotes, hi, double quotes, close. It will print hi. Print double quotes thrice, hi, double quotes thrice, hi. I shall print hi. So in Python, I can use in any of these manner. So since we talk about a class and object, let us start with a class. So initially, I just want to create a class called class AIT. So as I told you, a class name can be get followed with AIT and colon here. Okay, so class AIT. I just want to execute this class. I don't want to include any statements in this. I just want to see what it is going to get happen. I use a wait function. I use a keyword called pass. Okay, and go for save as. It will be a little bit slow, so I will be just storing in ex1.py. Okay, so by this color you can see there's a color difference in this. So this is also one way where you can know what it is happening, what is inbuilt and what is not inbuilt. Okay, now it is compiling. See, it is executing, but it is not showing anything as a result. I'll just minimize the screen. Right, so it has executed, but it is not showing anything as a result. There is no error in it, right? So it is not displaying any error. So it is, the program is continuing still. There is no error in it. So let us get into the same program where it is okay. Class AAT pass, and now I just want to do few more things, and just let me a minute. Let us continue the same example, class AAT pass. Now what I need to do is I will be creating a small program for this class AAT, and I will be just creating an object for it, and I will be calling the method in my class. So let us take define a small method, define AAT. So I just want to define I just want to display the names of a student, some names of a student. So def CSE, I will be creating this with a colon. Now just print welcome. Okay, and now let's see, once if I create a class and I've created a method in it, right, but there is no variables in it. So make sure that there is no variables. I'm not pointing out any variables, just I'm trying this, right? So since it is a method as like a function which is defined, but it has to be get called to get executed to call this. Now I want to create a reference object for this. For AAT I want to create a reference object. Let that be obj is equal to AIT. Now I will be calling it as obj.cse, and now let me see how the output works. Right, welcome. So once we create an object has to be once we create a class, the class will be having variable and methods. Once we have a method, what is the operation action that we are going to do on it? We need to create an instance for an object, that is called object instantiation. So this is called creating a new object is called instantiation. By this object you can point out the things in a class. For example, as I told you, few things like what is object is a real world entity. Object name can be a person name, place or thing. So what is called as a real world entity? What does the object mean actually? So that let us look into few more examples in this class, right? So class AAT, DEF, CSA, I have done something. And in Python, we have two more things called, it is define CSE, it is called like a CSE, right? In Python we have two more things. One is like same, I'm creating one more class example. So this is, I will be showing you with the example. So let us see. In Python we have two special methods. I hope you know the meaning of special method, right? So Python we have two special method. One is called underscore init underscore. It is for let us create a def underscore init underscore. So it is double underscores before and after this, and this init will represent it is called as initialization. So by default, initialization is will be automatically called every time you use and it is to be simple. I can call it as like automatic initialization method as like a constructor in Java, right? So I will tell you what is the purpose of this. Define initialization. Can't we do without this initialization? You can do it. You can do without this also. But once if I do this, I don't want to initialize anything. I will just tell you a small example. So define enid print. I'm going to print the same thing. Welcome. See, right? So since it is a program, I need to create an object reference. I will be creating an object reference as AIT equal to example. Right? Now let me take. I'm not calling this method init. Right? I'm not calling this method init. So I just want to save it, right? So ex2.py. So Python extension is .py. See, I'm not getting any variables or anything printing my screen. Okay, and let me change in this thing. Wait, I have done with one more example. I show you that example. Define comp. You know what is throwing, what is the problem. So, right. Yes, I missed a parameter called self. Yes. So this is not a class, right? So it is class ex2.py. So I missed a parameter called self. So this is a mandatory, this is a mandatory parameter. When I use this initialization method, I will be getting welcome. And see that I have not called this method initialization. I have not called this method, but when I execute this program, the method will be get automatically called. That is what a use of initialization method. And what is use of this is, init is used to initialize the variables, initialize the instance of an variables. Even if you're not calling it, it will initialize all the variables. And here, what is that self is referring to? What is that self is doing is something like, for example, if I have one or two objects in my program, if I talk about object, my class can have some n number of objects. My class can point to one object or two objects or three objects. Self refers to, to which object I'm pointing out. If it is, if I have multiple objects in my program, like object A, object B, object C, object C, object D, something like that. If I want to particularly talk with respect to object A, I can use self. So self is one thing which is referring to it as like this pointer. So which points out, which points to which object I'm communicating, which points to which object I'm using this, to which point to which object I'm working with this. And the other purpose of using this is, for example, I'll show you one more example. Since I have taken here this AIT, I will be getting this AIT. AIT is object, right? So let me try it. AIT is an object. Print ID AIT. So you are getting some number like 654153112. What is that address? So it has some address. What does that it mean? So once if I create an object called AIT as a reference, so this AIT will be having some storage area. That is what we call heap memory. Like in heap memory, for this object we will be having some address, right? So for each and every object, an address will be get created. So for each and every object, some address space will be get created, and for each and every object, some space will be created. And now, so if I call this again next time, so print ID AIT, right? AIT. Now let me see. So now if you look into it, it is printing the same address two times, but since it is only one object AIT. If I have one more object called AITCS, so let this be the second object. And now if I'm creating example, and now I just printed print ID AITCS, and now just look what it is going to show. See, right? Now since it is, we have two objects, right? We have two objects. One object is AIT, one object is AITCS. This object I have called twice. This object I have called once, AITCS. And now if I look into the result, I can see for this AITCS, AIT I will be getting this one, and for this AITCS I will be getting this address. So what is that this actually doing? So as I told you, like each and every object in heap memory will be having some address space. Okay, let me take like AIT. Now what is the size of AIT? It depends on how many variables, how many methods it uses, right? I can't tell like something this is fixed up to 1 MB or 2 MB or 3 MB. It varies. So it depends on how many number of variables it uses, or it depends on how many number of methods it uses to operate it, right? And now for example, if my object has 10 variables and 2 methods, and one more object has 1 variable and 1 method, the size of this and size of that will be little bit different. So this is what the actual job of a constructor in Python to do its task. So that is what we are doing this with as a constructor. That is what we are doing with this self and init. So this is what the self is working. So if I talk about a self, I have one thing called AIT, I have called one thing .cs. If I talk about self, this self will be pointing out to AIT, and this self will be pointing out to AITCS. And at a time, self will be pointing out a single object. When it is getting to next instance, it will be pointing out to the next instance. Like one instance will be AIT and the next instance will be AITCS. So it is what the difference, or it is what the meaning of using self and init in Python. So these are again, these two are inbuilt, but you're not going to define it, you're not going to use it, you're not going to define or create it. It comes inbuilt. And even if you want to write a program without this init and without the self, you can do it. But once if you are doing it, you can have automatic initialization in a program. So just we have just again I'm recalling it. Since we have init, I will we shall go with one more example. So class, let me take a CSEB, right? Class, let me take CSEB. I have one more method called define init. I'm create this comes with automatic. Whenever you use init, I will be using self, right? Whenever you use unit, I will be using self. So define init self print. Or if you want to do some operation, let me take simple addition. So let me take c is equal to 5 plus 2 print c. Now see whether it works or not. Let's see, right? So I want to create a reference called AITC is equal to CSEB, right? I'm not calling this method. Let us try ex3.py, right? That is not showing anything since I'm using a reference self. But if I use a variables to point this, then I should use the print variables. So what it can do is just it can print the statements. If I want to use the variables, I will tell you how to use those variables in self. So print welcome you all. What it is throwing. What we have done with exercise 2, right? Exercise 2 or 3.py, not exercise 3, exercise 2.py, right? So define int self welcome print. So this is how it works. And as I told you, like using a variable, let us go with using a variable. So let me take one more example. This is using a variable. Say this, I've created a class name as person. First I've used the initialization method init self name age. And as you're talking about, since you're passing 3 parameters, not 3, you are passing 3 parameters actually, self name object. So this will be the object, this will be variable 1, this will be variable 2, right? And now if I use a self name, this is how you use a self name age, and I need to write self dot name equal to name. As I told you, self will be object, right? To which object I'm pointing to it. If it is object A, then it will be A dot name. If I'm pointing to object B, then it will be B dot name. If I'm pointing to object C, then it will be C dot name. So self dot name equal to name, self dot age equal to age. And now, so what I'm doing is like now I've created object instance P1 is equal to person. So P1 equal to person. So this P1 will be my first object communicating. So person John 36. So now in this case, first will be P1. I will be pointing out, I will be talking out with object P1. So P1 John 36. Next, when I get into P2, it will talk about P2 name age. So P2 person, P2 SCA Satya. So I will just write this as P2 comma something Saran. So P2 person Saran 25. So I just printing out print P1.a, print P1.h. Now let's see, right? So I'm getting John 36, but I'm not getting the second one, person P2.h. Since the reason is I'm not printing the second one. So now what I will be doing is print P2. I want to get person to name, P2 dot name, and I want to get print P2 dot h, right? So print P2 dot h. Now if I combine this, now let me check, I will be getting two things. So this is how this init and self works within a program. Okay, so let me recall it. So first thing is we have created a class program without any initialization method. I mean without any of this initialization methods. For example, what was that we have done is, right? So this is the one, and there is no initialization method, the default constructor method. You are not done with that, right? So we can do this particular way, and if I'm doing that in my particular way, that will be most, I mean that is most suggested to do the second case how we are doing it in a program. So one is this, creating a class and creating object reference for it and calling the method in a class. Second one will be I will be creating a class, and with that I will be using a default initialization method, and through that method how I can access the members of variables in my program. That is what I am talking about it. And next I will talk about a self parameter. So these are the few things. And next let us get back to our previous presentation. In slide presentation we talk about a class something called rectangle, and in this rectangle how we are going to print a value from this particular rectangle, right? So it is a small example. So class rectangle, I will be using a keyword called def, so which is used to define or create a method, what is called function in programming, and here we call it as like a method. So self comma l comma w. So self will be the first parameter, so it is to which the object I am pointing out, I am talking to it, that is referred by the self. And it is length, it is width. So self dot length equal to l, self dot width equal to w. And define area. So this is actual second method where I am going to do some kind of operation. So this is what these two things will be variables, right? This is called variables, and it is method. So return self dot length into self dot width. I am returning this, right? So let me check the output of this, right? 20. So it is one example of creating this rectangle, and we shall have one more example for that copying program in the next session or in the next class. Thank you.